welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. Today we have joining us is Shelley Neese, the Jerusalem Connection's president. Shelley, great to have you on. We enjoy having you pop in every few weeks or few months to tell us what's going on outside the walls of the Jerusalem Connection's virtual offices. So you were in Israel last month, the first 2 weeks of October during the feast, and I know most of our followers and viewers are really excited to learn about what you were doing there, why you were there, what unfolded, and you happened to be there during the time when it was announced that the live hostages were coming home. So great to have you, and let's hear the story.
Yeah, I mean, usually anytime I've been in Israel, it's usually when bad things happen. So it was nice to be there when something incredible happened, or at least was announced. When I left, the last time I had been in Israel, I was there with the excavation team at Shiloh, and we got stuck there because the Iran war happened and had to leave through Egypt. This time, my family is in the middle of a school year, and so it wasn't just like the lazy days of summer. So I was a little bit worried. What if I just didn't have time to not be able to catch the appropriate flight back and still make family life work? But no, it was really incredible. I went with the International Christian Embassy of Jerusalem USA branch. They, 40 years, have been on the Feast of Tabernacles, bringing Christians together in Jerusalem, basically to walk out Zechariah's prophecies that the nations would gather in Israel for the Feast of Tabernacles and go up to Jerusalem. So they don't really word it that they're fulfilling that prophecy, but that they're walking it out, that they're practicing it. And in normal times, there's number of people around the globe has just been going up and up and up in terms of how many nations are represented and the thousands of people that arrive. This was a wartime, and so impressively, about 1,300 people from 70 nations that came. Fiji actually had just, decided to move their embassy to Jerusalem, and so it was really sweet because they got a lot of love and celebration for that commitment. I mean, once again, we're seeing that happen because they're Christians in these countries that are making the right decisions based off of God's promises. So at least 2 of the nights of the actual feast events, we were celebrating Fiji joining the handful of nations that have decided to take that step. But in general, I was with a group of 20s and 30s people who, for the most part, had never been to Israel before. And that was incredible because, you and I have had the opportunity to be to Israel many times, and there's just nothing like the first time. So getting to be there and see all these sights through their eyes as first-time visitors was really sweet and special. I was kind of jealous of them in that way. Going to the upper room and seeing the Sea of Galilee for the first time. So I'm pretty cheap usually when we go to Israel, just traveling there with my family or my husband or for work events. And so I've never done a lot of the things that are on traditional tours. I'd never done one of the Sea of Galilee boat rides.
Oh, wow.
Because that's a tour thing.
It is a tour thing.
I had never done that, and I've done Hezekiah's tunnels a bunch of times. I'm trying to think. There was one other thing that just felt I've always wanted to do this. Well, I've never done the march. I've always wanted to go for ICEJ's March of the Nations, but never had that opportunity, and always was kind of scared of it being too crowded, too, because, it's the Jewish high holidays, and then you've got 3,000 Christians usually there, too. But just tourism has not picked back up yet because of the Gaza war. So besides the Jews who were there, because it's a mandatory feast to visit Jerusalem, the country was still very empty. I've never seen the Christian sites in the Galilee so empty. And that was the other thing. These people that are visiting Israel for the first time, they have no idea how lucky they had it. Because
private tours.
Yes, we got baptized in the Jordan River at Yardenit, which is the most popular baptismal site. And
usually there's a long line to do that.
Yes. And then you can't get a picture without other people in the background. And they were just there. Like, we had the whole place to ourselves.
Wow.
All their pictures look like it's only them in the Jordan River. And that was incredible. The Mount of Olives also is usually just crowded with tourist bus and everything. And you're trying to talk over the other tour guides. And we were the only ones there. The Mount of Beatitudes, Nigeria is still bringing lots of Christian groups, or a lot of Christian groups from Nigeria. Are coming over. So there was just two nations represented at Mount of Beatitudes. And so that was really amazing. But we made it to Jerusalem. So we did the Galilee. Because this was a young tour group, we pushed them very hard. Like, Allison Griffin is the one who planned it all. She's the ICEJ USA event coordinator, and she's young with tons of energy. So she planned a trip accordingly. But when we landed in Tel Aviv at 9:30 in the morning, it was a full tour day. So there was no like going back to a hotel and taking a quick nap after overnight trip. We started the tour day, went to Caesarea, went to Magdala, did all the sites in the north, and then did a bus ride the next day, essentially down to the Dead Sea area. I had never been since October, I've only been back to Israel to excavate at Shiloh since October 7th. And so I had never been to the Nova sites. And that was also one big reason why I wanted to be part of this trip with this particular group, is to visit those sites. And that was incredible. I mean, I have not shied away from like looking at all of the images and all of the horrible like documentation that has came out of that brutal terror attack and all the terrible things that happened that day. But I mean, there's just nothing like seeing it in person, seeing how close these communities were to the Gaza border, visiting the Nova site. I mean, we could hear the war was still very much actively going on in Gaza. So it sounded like the machine guns and the bombs were just right there. And so you could just see how these kids in tents at a concert were just low-lying fruit to these, this horrible, evil massacre. And we got to hear testimony. We heard a testimony from a Nova survivor and got to pray for him. Got to hear a testimony from an IDF soldier whose job it is to identify the bodies of soldiers who were killed in Gaza. And so I think for a lot of people in the group, they knew about October 7th, but certainly had not stayed very attached to all of the individual stories that happened that day. It was really remarkable just seeing young Christians process the tragedy. And I came away from that thinking, normally Yad Vashem is a really critical site to go to for these types of trips, just to process the whole story of the Jewish people and how it culminated in the nation of Israel. But I don't know, I'm like, for the next 20 years, I almost think going to the Nova site and going to the October 7th site, seeing Kibbutz Be'eri, which hopefully will be rebuilt in the soon future, but seeing those sites is almost more critical because it's something that has happened in all of our lifetimes.
Right.
And just really shows the dangers that Israel is facing every single day in its present reality. So I was really thankful to see that and to be a part of that. They also have a memorial that is all of the burned out cars, just stacked upon stacked. So each car tells its own story, whether or not it's bullet holes in the front windows, or just all these cars were burned, their tops were peeled off. I was even just more struck by the car memorial than almost anything else. Maybe too, because, participating and seeing the documentary by Igal about the killing roads, I kept wondering, looking for specific cars that the story that documentary told. But yeah, and just also the site was flooded with Christians because the International Christian Embassy just, they added that to their normal tour week and had a special time of prayer and worship at Sapir College, which is the local college there in southern Israel. So I also just was so happy that there's all these Christians that want to tell this story, that want to face the brutal reality of what happened that day. And thank God for Christians that are just committed to the protection and security of the Jewish state. And so after that, we went and stayed in Jerusalem. And we were in Jerusalem on the night that, we were hearing rumors about a ceasefire deal that that Trump and his team were working out with the Israeli government. I mean, maybe because I've always been in Israel when terrible things happen, but I just thought, okay, if this doesn't land, if this deal doesn't land, like I don't even know what to expect, but I'm sure it's not going to be good for us. And Delta had already been flirting with canceling the flights just when Israel started surrounding Gaza City. And so that night at 3 a.m, we had a hotel that was really close to just Jerusalem city center, and we just heard like cars honking in the streets and people shouting and cheering, and so many people are just out later than normal too because they're in their sukkahs because it was Sukkot, and so every sukkah just lit up with joy. It was an incredible experience. And then the next morning we go to do the march, which is when all of the Christians from all of the nations walk around Jerusalem, and Israelis come out for that. I mean, over 40 years they've come to anticipate this event, and they want to show their love back to all of these Christians that have come during a time of war. Other people that were with me that have done the march before said they've never seen anything like this because, I mean, they came out to give love to America. Like, they credited every bit of that peace deal to Trump.
Wow.
I don't know if it was also kind of to give a slap in the face to Bibi, that they didn't want to credit it to their own leader who they felt like took too much time maybe. But certainly Trump was the one that they kept mentioning. And so just every little Israeli kid that we pass by and every parent or family are just saying, you know, like, we love America. Thank you, Trump. Thank you, America. God bless the USA. We had all these flags and all these like little USA trinkets that we were trying to, and I think we gave them all away and within the first quarter. Probably also since we were new to the march, didn't totally understand how long it was.
Yeah, you have to pace it out.
Yes. And I'm from Louisiana, so parade culture, like that was a huge party foul to not have enough things to share in a parade. So it was just the first time I've been in Israel that something so wonderful happened, like to be a part of history that was just a positive step forward. I wasn't there when the hostages actually were released and went home to their families. Came back the day before, but I mean, I did feel like when I was walking through the airport, because those signs of the hostages are just, they've been in the airport for 2 years and they take them down every time a hostage is released or a body is returned home. But you can see on them where they take a Sharpie and change the age. Like a lot of them, you know,
have birthdays, of course.
Yes. And so you can see it where they've Sharpied their age out twice to change their age. And so I did feel like when I was leaving the airport and passing those signs, like this will be the last time I pass these signs. And this will be the last time this is like a fixture at this airport and just all over Israel.
So what was, as you were observing the younger crowd, the Gen Z, that's the term we're using now, what were you observing as they watched things unfold? Like, for example, they started out, a lot of them, it was probably their first visit, and they may not have the biblical literacy. Some of them have different levels of that biblical foundation for why we believe what we believe about Israel and their land promise. Coupling that learning journey, as much as that was part of it, with the real-time contemporary archives of what they were seeing that Israel is enduring today, the car museum, the Nova site, the kibbutzim, just the people. There's people in Israel that are, I mean, you have something to compare it to, the level of joy or not. I mean, you were there during the second intifada, and then you were there you've been there not when so many joyous things are happening, but now they're at the worst. So what did you see as far as their evolution? These young people, was there any evolution in their understanding or their compassion or their empathy?
Well, so certainly, I mean, you know, the number one reason we want Christians to go to Israel is to draw closer to their own personal Savior and to really like walk in the steps of Jesus and to make the Bible come alive to them. Because without the Bible, I mean, there are no Zionists. Without the Bible, like, this whole thing doesn't make any sense, right? So I was really glad. I mean, it was my colleague Allison who planned the itinerary, but I was really glad it was planned the way it was because, you know, we go to sites that mark the majority of Jesus's life in the Galilee. I mean, the majority of the miracles and teachings that he gave in the Gospels all happened there. And the Galilee is just It's still so pure. It's still exactly like it was 10,000 years ago. Maybe Jesus didn't have banana groves, but that's about it. And so it just doesn't, for someone that's just fresh off the plane from Miami to Israel, you're not asking for a big stretch of the imagination when you're in the Galilee. It's very easy to see Jesus in a boat preaching from the shoreline. It's very easy to imagine him giving the Sermon on the Mount on those hills. And so I really just felt like in those first couple of days, everyone just got to draw closer to Jesus, to put him in his own place and time in their heads, and for their Bibles to come alive to them. And then it was after that we went to the Nova site, and that we did these October 7th sites. So then suddenly it's like a jolt of, here is modern Israel's story. So that's also very biblically relevant, like we're opening up Hosea and Zechariah and reading these prophets, and like, how is God continuing to work through the Jewish people today, and God and this grander story of Israel. And obviously too, we went to Qumran and Masada, and got to see just the final moments before the Jews were kicked out of the land for 2,000 years, essentially. And so to feel the heaviness of what happened over that time period and their return is that much more meaningful. So that was really important for them to just develop radical empathy for not just October 7th, but for 2,000 years of a really rough go of Jews living in exile outside of the land. Pretty much all of that time, though, they're not heavy in the Jewish community, because the Galilee is, mostly just, if anybody, other Christian tourists. And then we were with all of the Christian participants that were there for the feast with ICEJ for those next couple of days. And so by the time we landed in Jerusalem, it's really the first time I felt like they got to experience like the Jewishness of this nation and all of its glory. Here it is that the Jews have gathered for a biblical feast that they read about and know about in their Bibles. And these are a mixture of Jewish and Christian holy sites that are often both, because the Old and New Testament are relevant and beautiful to us. So when we're visiting the city of David, we can also visit the Pool of Siloam, which is incredibly important for both Jews and Christians. So I felt like that it was there that kind of got to be the finishing part of the story. This is where Jesus spent the last week of his life, so they can continue just their walk towards Christ and all of the major events of, his crucifixion and resurrection. Garden of Gethsemane is always my favorite site to go to. I mean, I don't think I ever go to Israel without going to the Garden of Gethsemane. But then also to just see the fulfillment of what it means for the Jews to be regathered in their land. And also a Sukkot, so they're just making lots of Jewish friends. We got to have a Shabbat dinner on the very last night, sort of spontaneously, with someone that we met along the way. And at that point, like, they have things to talk to their Jewish neighbors about. Miami has a very large Jewish community. And so I loved the idea of them coming back and sharing their stories just with their Jewish colleagues and Jewish neighbors that they have here in Miami. And so the act of love gets to continue here in their local community as well.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, we can read all about Israel. We can watch videos on our social media, and those are all good things to do. I don't discount that. But when there's an opportunity to physically go and walk these sites and be where Jesus was and bring your Bible, because if you read those passages of the Bible that are happening on those particular locations where you're standing, it's extremely powerful. It's no longer just this ethereal story that we believe, but it becomes very, very real. And that makes a lot of other things very, very real.
Exactly. That
we have to pay attention to. Shelley, it was great to learn about your trip. I'm so excited you got to go, and I'm so excited that this time it was a far more joyous time to exit. Back in July it was a little harrowing, and we look forward to learning about your next trip, whenever that may be, and finding out how that goes. Just so everybody knows, I'll be in Israel November 1st through 8th for the Christian Media Summit, so I'll report on that after I get back, but
I'll interview you for that one.
We are so appreciative to all of our audience that want to learn as much as they can so they can draw closer to Jesus and know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and understand their Bible, and then use that understanding to be a light in the world today. So we're so appreciative of your help and your support. And Shelley, you keep up the good work. Thanks. Shavua Tov, everyone. If you enjoy these conversations, please visit us at www.thejerusalemconnection.us. Find all our podcasts on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast program. Follow us on social media, subscribe, like, and share our content to reach the broadest audience.